I'm Commander Shepard, and VGS is my favorite show on the Citadel.
What brought you out here to Andromeda?
Back home, I was filling test tubes in some dead-end lab. People knew me as Stefan, but that was never who I was. I knew what I could do, and I knew who I wanted to do it as. Hainley Abrahms, Andromeda Explorer. That's me. Feels good. Feels right.
That one character, Hainley Abrahms, is the centerpiece to an unfortunate amount of controversy for BioWare. I'm Andy Borkowski, joined by Liam Brand here today. And in the game Mass Effect Andromeda, like many other BioWare games, there is a transgender character, Hainley Abrahms, that we just heard from. It's a character that you meet on one of the first planets, Eos in Podromos, and in the conversation, she utters out her dead name, Stefan, I believe is what we just heard there, or Stephen. That one moment of sharing her gender identity has led to an uproar with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people for various different reasons. So much so that BioWare themselves released a statement saying that in Mass Effect Andromeda, Hainley Abrahms was not included in a caring or thoughtful way. We apologize to anyone who interacted with or was hurt by this conversation. This was never our intent and was an unfortunate byproduct of the iterative process of game design and a change in structure of the character's dialogue. We have several discussions with members of the transgender community, both internally at BioWare and in the broader community, and we are working to remedy this issue. Once the changes are implemented, Hainley will only reveal certain information to Ryder after they have developed trust, and only if the player chooses to support her. As always, we appreciate the help, feedback, and support from the Mass Effect community. So,
this is a really interesting thing to happen, I think.
It is.
Where especially we're getting this level of lashback from both ends, but also that people are recognizing that this isn't a respectful way for a transgender character to be represented in the game, and it's completely unrealistic. And that is, refreshing to hear, and it's really great to hear those changes are made, I think.
I think that you spoke to it right there. There are people who are aware that sharing a dead name is the taxonomy that's used in the community, is something that is very personal and very unlikely to be done so quickly.
It's in the first 30 seconds of knowing someone.
Of meeting someone, of literally meeting someone. And think about some of your deepest, darkest troubles. I'm not going to be telling Ryan, the new camera guy, who I just met a little while ago. I like him a lot, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. So I think it's fair to say that this is not or something that is being represented well from a certain group. So they just, people are saying they don't like it for that reason. There's reasoning behind it. There we go. Now, the other side has presented something. And I just want to stop right there because it's not really the other side. There aren't two sides here. There's people, in my opinion, trying to have a character that is accurate and true to what their initial gameplay design was, a transgender character. And there are some people that maybe don't agree with that, don't really like it in their game. And there's a lot of people who are vile scum, who are the worst type of human beings. The reason I can say this is because we posted a video here on Video Game Sophistry of that conversation, the Hainley Abrahms conversation. Chances are, if you saw this video in the last week or so, it was from our YouTube channel. And because of that, we've gotten, I think last year was 1,000 different comments. A majority of them, the most disgusting and deplorable representations of humanity that I've ever seen.
Not even an exaggeration.
I'm known to exaggerate.
We are two cisgender straight men right here, and we're absolutely horrified, had a very hard time reading the disgusting, terrible things that people had to say. And I wish that like this was a stretch or over an exaggeration, but like I have never seen really that much just vile hatred.
It's hard. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And we have never gone through any struggle remotely close to this.
No, but as a
human
with
being,
a base level of empathy, like
Yeah.
we're not even overly empathetic people, I think,
No.
in comparison to others, but to even just think, about these things being said about other people is like, it's beyond too far.
So we understand who we are, where we're coming from. And instead of Liam and I kind of speaking to whether or not this is a great transgender character or the different degrees of minutia, we have an interview I did a little while ago with David Gator, a former lead writer on the Dragon Age series, Dragon Age Inquisition, that featured a character, Krem, which was also a transgender character that, in many people's opinions, really got it right. And I know I personally really enjoyed learning about this character's story and the journey that this character had. We have David Gator.
I had already made a character called Mayvaris Talani in one of the comics, and he said it would be neat if we could, take that one step further and have something in the game, and it would be cool if I made this character transgender. And the team sort of discussed it, and we were like, oh, see, that's not a limitation, because the moment he said that, it's just like, oh, well, let's stop and think about that for a moment. And that sort of opened up all new ideas about what that would mean. Well, okay, how would Iron Bull, as a member of the Canary, feel about transgender? It led into a conversation about the way the Canary viewed gender, which is different from us. And there's a way we figured when we wrapped our heads around it, it's like, I don't think the Canary would look on gender the same way we do, not the way that when we've discussed them. And the idea of the Chargers, Iron Bull's mercenary group, sort of they consisted of the other, and not the other as in a threatening or derogatory sense, but people who had different experiences, and that who they were said something about Iron Bull. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, David. And when I hear that back, it's kind of inspiring as someone that likes games to know that a team wanted to include a representation that isn't normally included, I think, in a lot of games, little did I know, and decided to include it in a really strong narrative way.
Yeah,
to
you're
think
not
about
slapping it in there. It's really, you're developing the world around this.
And making sure there's no method of tokenism whatsoever, because there are human beings that deal with this. And how would human beings dealing with this in a fantasy setting work? That level of detail and connection is inspiring, it's hopeful, and it kind of led me and Liam to go down a path of thinking, like, there's not a lot of transgender characters that I'm aware of, right, that are in games. Well, it turns out there is a lot.
Yeah, in some capacity.
Yeah, not in the most
like,
traditional capacity, but I think it's kind of interesting to see how many characters have trans or non-binary gender identities in gaming.
And it's really interesting how I don't know, when a character like Hainley Abrahms in Mass Effect is included, it's this huge uproar. But like, let's look at someone like Zero from Borderlands 2. Everybody has played Borderlands 2, and Zero was a non-binary character. They went by they and them pronouns, and there wasn't really a huge uproar, and it kind of almost even slipped under the radar. But it's something that was just presented as normal and there. And it wasn't tokenized. It wasn't like put a big spotlight on it. Like, look what we did. It was just
authentic.
It was
very
an authentic character
yeah.
that existed within the world and that people accepted. And as such, a lot of the fans just accepted it. And it's really nice to see that be included and, create that, I don't know, that message of normality. Like, this is how it should be. Beyond Zero, we've got even Undertale was a huge game.
That kind of blows me away a little bit when you see it now, looking back a bit.
Yeah?
That this way, it was surprising because I did not, it's intentionally ambiguous. And the protagonist is referred to as they. The main character is referred to as they. And I like that because it includes the idea of what gaming is about, especially a game like Undertale, about role-playing and playing that role. It would have been very difficult for them to create a character that is both male or female, considering the budget they had in that game. So they provided something that was androgynous enough that you could live in that world and experience a game where that fluidity was normal, and that's kind of what we're talking about.
You yourself as a player could reflect yourself in that character no matter what your gender identity, and that's incredible. I think one of the more interesting fantasy applications of that were the Daedric princes in the Elder Scrolls games. And what I read up on this was that Daedric princes are able to be any gender at any time they want. Most of them choose to either be male or female, but a really notable exception of this is Mephala, who often switches between male or female depending on what victim they choose to ensnare. So that's an example of a gender fluid character, but that has this really cool story tied to it even.
It ties in really well to our cultural history as well, of the pantheon of gods, of Greek gods and other Mesopotamian gods that would have that gender fluidity and wouldn't necessarily be seen as evil villains. Zeus came in several different forms. He was animals in different ways.
Yeah.
Like, it was about creating that difference where sexuality wasn't so binary. And the idea of the world dictating the situations brings me to Horizon Zero Dawn, the character of Jaina, which was someone you met outside of Meridian, a game I absolutely love. And when you ask this person a question, basically saying like, oh, they let women operate in this army? She says, no, I'm not one of your sisters. I'm a soldier. That speaks, I think, really well to a game trying to authentically create a transgender character in that world. So I really believe the creators of that looked at the situation and said, just like David Gator did, we want a transgender character. How would they operate in this world? And it wouldn't be tokenized or brought in. It would be, it's a very strict class system. They would operate differently in a class. They would identify with a profession because that is how this particular civilization, the Karja in that game, such a great game. I'm giving spoilers, but it's so freaking good. They're not big spoilers. How they would operate. So I feel that, and I think it is one of the best representations
I think
of a character, of just a really great character that you loved.
Yeah.
And you cared that they were transgender. It mattered to you because it was so important to the culture and to the individual.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What else we got? Because there's a big list.
Yeah, I think even kind of a wholesome messaging comes from one of the best, easily one of the best games ever made, Chrono Trigger. The character Flea has a really great quote. Flea is gender fluid or gender non-conforming. It's never explicitly stated, but they have a great quote, which is, male or female, what difference does it make? Power is beautiful, and I've got the power. and that's great. It's like, no matter
how could you hate
they
that?
appear
Who
appear
hates
feminine.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Who looks at that in Chrono Trigger and says that's disgusting? Why do we have these options? Who hurt you? I will make it better. I am the poster boy. Like, I get a little bit of a beard, wear a wife beater. I'm the poster boy of everything that is wrong with like a stereotype of a white male. That's me, baby. Anyways, continue.
You must have a whole lot of self-hatred then, Andy.
Oh, you have no idea. Please keep going.
Who else do we have? I mean, Bridget from Guilty Gear. I think, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan.
You don't think it should be on the list?
I don't like personally, but like what is my opinion on this? But it's presented as like a male who was raised as a girl and who just like believes they're female, and like that's something that, you know, in the history of psychological studies has happened. But I don't think, you know, to praise that as a representation of the trans community. Yeah,
it's not really a choice, but it's still, it shows the beautiful rainbow in which we all live.
Exactly.
The idea that you are just one thing is just not the reality of our human experience. And then just to round it off, we have Serendipity, which David Gator, I think, spoke to earlier, was a character in Dragon Age 2 that the writers weren't exactly happy with because it was a little bit not inflammatory, but maybe insensitive to transgender characters because there's kind of a deep voice talk like that and was really over-sexualized. And he made a really good point that it's okay to have characters like that. It's just that shouldn't be the only character. that is transgender that is represented that way. Just like you don't want the only woman in your game or only man in your game to be a dude bro that's disgusting and womanizing, and you don't want a woman to be a damsel in distress as the only representation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's important because that's not my human experience. I meet so many different people, unfortunately, in my life that are 1,000 degrees of different. It feels inauthentic to only have women and men act one way in a video game. And finally, I think one of the most successful representations of transgender characters was from BioWare itself, like we talked about before. Cremisius Aclassi in, I got the whole name, baby, in Dragon Age Inquisition. I know you hate this word, but that confluence between the character's individuality and the world he was brought up in is just a really powerful message to anyone who plays this game. It's a powerful message to people that are going through this struggle. It's something that is special, well made, and I have a hard time thinking anything negative about it.
But we have people in the comments who think very negative things about it.
So,
like, I don't know, there's a good chance we put this video up and it's going to be talking about transgender characters in video games. And there's a good chance a lot of these people who left these very comments are going to be watching this video right now.
You!
Seriously.
Sincerely. So that's, again, there's a great representation. There's a bunch of different characters. Who knew? Now, we have selected at random a few subsets of the YouTube community that are supposed to represent the other side. You are not the other side.
These are the top comments.
These are the top comments
disgusting.
in other videos like ours of the VGS, Hainley Abrahms, and then a few other people that are talking about the top things that are voted on by this community. The message needs to be clear. You should not represent this community. You're a vile human being. Let's begin. First off, we have Revilzia Lucky saying, Oh, actually, no, this is a good one. We're going to skip that one.
Yeah.
No, this is a good one. Revilzia Lucky, you're a great person. So I'm going to say it anyway, because I think it's important. Show, don't tell. This is why animation quality and all of the technical mess are also the least of the game's problems. What kind of writing is that? A very astute criticism of a game that I think had a lot of problems. Good job, Lucky.
Gonna get a little check mark. Ding!
Ding!
Yeah, there you
Ding
go.
for Lucky. Now we have one that didn't do so well. Go ahead, Liam.
Ricky Fajar said, now it's confirmed that all Andromeda Initiate participants are actually SJW/LGBTQWNAJRCXS. Yeah, he was just slamming
There's
on
a lot
the
of,
keyboard
yeah,
at
he
this
had a lot
point.
of keys.
Snowflakes from their respective species. No wonder they're so full of shit.
It's just like, this is a human being that was on their keyboard and thought like, oh man, someone needs to hear this.
Someone's transgender, so they must be an SJW.
I don't know what human experience could lead you to act this way. And frankly, I don't care. There's a lot of idea that there needs to be this communal aspect of, we need to understand why people are hateful and terrible. No, Ricky Fajara, fuck you. Check mark for you. Now, there's one here who has a similar last name to me, so I thought we should talk about it. Mr. Borkowski. I apologize to my family that has a similar last name, but this is what they decided to say to the world. It's funny to me that people don't even bother to realize that homosexuality, transgender, Black Lives Matter, and feminist movements are pushed and funded by the same people that brought the shitty refugee invaders into Europe. Oh, I forgot about all the white men are evil and racist. It's spewing hatred. It's nothing. It's screaming into a void. Bartowski, look at me. Listen. I know you're scared you're going to die. I'm scared too. But you don't need to hurt other people's feelings. It won't make you stronger. It won't make you live forever. Who are you trying to help by spewing this incoherent nonsense? It's insane. You are insane, sir. Liam Brand, what else do we got?
The one that's most there's actually a lot that
keep going.
That conveyed the same message.
Yeah, these are not even the worst. These are just ones we took at random.
I'd say this is by far the worst. Just people requesting that you be able to kill this character and that you can just kill.
Read it out. Let's hear.
It says can you kill NPCs in this game? If not, I'm saving my $60 and not spending it on this junk. The first thing I want to do in this game is eliminate all these liberal scum. And it's like, wow, this is the
This is a
same
video
mentality of people who like, yeah, will go and literally like have a desire to murder trans folk. And it's
terrible. It's shocking as a human
beyond
being.
words.
It's shocking as a human being. It's deplorable as someone that lives in the Western world. And it's really just insulting as someone that likes games that this seems to
It's
be
dangerous.
At
It's
least
dangerous
some of the
how
face.
common of a viewpoint that this is. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. I get being even like homophobic and being like, oh,
You get being homophobic?
No, sorry. I get that those people
Liam
exist. That like, you know, my religion says that being transgender is bad. Like, but to get to the point that you genuinely believe that these people should be killed, for what reason? And that you want to do it yourself in a virtual environment.
We also need to remember this is someone watching another character in a video game and having all this hate. This is not normal. Borkowski, USC Gaming Network 2, Marty Kami, Ricky Farger, you're not normal. And that doesn't mean you have access to some greater knowledge because you're so different. This is nothing but sadness. You're not inflaming people because you're so irreverent. There's a sadness and a hate. It's okay. We're all going to die. It's okay. Liam, is there anything you have to say to these people?
To these people, I don't know. The most positive thing is that
Camera's right there. Take a look. Give it right here. Come on, Liam.
I don't know. I don't have anything meaningful. Like I actually can't summon up anything beyond just pure disgust for these people. But just like I know,
Can I help you here?
It might feel good to just
here we go.
to be right. Like to think that like I'm offering some alternative perspective that's actually like a great perspective, but you're not. You're really affecting the lives of so many people, and it's like I don't know how you can live with yourself thinking that. But
Summarize. Fuck you, you fucking fucks.
VGS.
It's going to be a big thing on the screen. Fuck you, you fucking fucks.
Signed, Liam and Andy.
Liam and Andy, Esquire. As a final note to anyone listening here, if you have been terrorized by some of the people commenting on our content or around the interwebs, and you represent yourself as a transgender person, or maybe you just like are a regular human being and you feel bad that this is happening. For one, you know, we feel bad too, and there's millions of other people who also feel bad. And that you should know that the people that hosted this content don't agree, and that I'm sorry. Like, I am sorry. I feel for you that this is something you had to go through. And I hope that it's not something that you have to deal with again and again, because I can't imagine what it would be like to have comments like that slung towards you. I get a little bit sensitive if I'm called a Jew twink fag, I think was one of the lines that was used.
That was at me.
That was
actually.
at you, sorry.
Yeah.
So I can't, and that's rarely even true. So I can't imagine what it was like for someone that had to go through struggles to be ridiculed and maligned and threatened for just choosing to be yourself. Thank you for making that choice, and thank you for listening. I'm Andy Borkowski.
I'm Liam Brand.
And this is VGS. Get dancing. Come on. Oh, you are dancing. I'm sorry.
Wow, what does that mean?
I think you're bad at this. I'm Andy Borkowski. This is VGS. We got Anton Mack. Man, I always forget that face. Jesse. Travis.
Travis with a T.
Liam Brand is here. And this week, we've been talking a lot about Mass Effect Andromeda, as we do every single week. But the game's already out. It's been out for a couple of weeks, and the folks at BioWare thought it would be prudent to release a patch. Mass Effect Andromeda patch 1.05 is out and promises a few changes. What those changes are? Pretty straightforward. They added the option to skip the autopilot sequence in the galaxy map, which is huge, right? Like
So
Anton, we've been playing
good.
it so much, so
Oh my god, I feel like I spend most of that game there.
I won't explore the different clusters because it will take too long. Because you literally are just waiting for this little VR ride without the virtual reality.
So what's the alternative like now? Is it more like the original trilogy?
Well, you don't. In the original, you remember it was a little ship that went across, and I loved that.
Yeah.
And there was fuel,
You'd
and I
run
felt
from,
like
Reapers
yeah,
and
no,
stuff?
the Reapers. That's what I would say. I was only 23. But in this go around, I played a little bit of it today. You still have that sequence when you go from cluster to cluster or system to system because you're in one cluster. But when you go from planet to planet, you just press a button and literally it fades to black and you have the view of the planet. Oh. It makes so much more sense. And it also kind of proves that was not used to hide a loading screen, which I thought would be the obvious reason they have this elongated and unnecessary VR thing. But I guess someone at Bioware actually thought, like, no, this would be cool. Let's spend a lot of resources on it.
Oh, it's the worst.
Now it's gone. You can still do it, which is great. They increased the inventory limits, which is hilarious because I wasted all of my goddamn perks on increasing my inventory limits, and now it's like 300. Before it was at 45, and I was barely able to play the game. The probably biggest and most effective change that they got was improving lip sync and facial acting during conversations, including localized VO, and fixing several bugs that have to do with the facial animations of the characters. So that famous line that we all know and love now, that my face is tired, that scene's different.
Apparently, it's a lot different.
Yeah,
It
you haven't
looks
seen
so
it?
much
No,
better.
No.
She doesn't look tired, even though she does.
Oh, Travis.
I am tired right now, so I have her
pure
exact
wisdom.
same mindset.
Yeah, no, but she like grasps her face.
It does
and,
look
like,
better.
Doesn't look, and they fixed her makeup, which is kind of like a weird thing to say. But before she kind of like she looked pretty clowny.
No,
and
she
now it
just
looks
didn't
like
get
a
done up,
normal
man.
person.
Yeah,
And she has body movement now.
Yeah.
Actual, like, she gives you, like, body signs
Yeah.
and everything. It looks so
Gives
much
you
better.
body signs?
Like, she's actually using her movement to convey tone instead of just deadpan looking at you
Yeah.
going,
Are you
oh,
sure
my
you're
face
human?
is tired.
Look at
No,
these
they're
body
blowing my
signs he's
cover.
giving to me.
Yeah. No, they actually look human, and, you know.
Thanks, Travis.
It does.
So basically, this is out. It's making changes. Appreciate this, Travis. And I think the big question now is not whether or not this should have been done, because that can be talked about until, the cows come home, as old people say, and myself. But I think it's more about the role of us, the people that play games and talk about games and live games, and the role of them, the people that make, supposedly listen to, and for a living create the things we love. It's a really interesting dynamic in terms of media. I'm remembered a instance in the last year or so involving comic books when it was announced and shared. I don't know if you guys are following this, that Captain America was actually someone to do with the what is the bad side of the other
The
opposition?
Nazis.
I know, no, you're right about that. They are Nazis, but it was
Hydra.
Hydra,
Hydra,
yes,
yeah.
that he was actually a sleeper agent for Hydra. And the moral outrage from the community, the people, real people, that said that my grandfather fought against the Nazis and this is a symbol and how dare you reappropriate this symbol, led to, they didn't exactly change it, but there was enough of an outrage that they addressed it. This seems to be a similar reaction because there was such an explosive reaction to the eyes and, how terrible this game is in a lot of ways. In terms of that relationship, there's a lot of pitfalls and nuanced positions here. Should consumers be allowed to complain if a game is terrible?
Absolutely.
Of course. Totally.
But people always say you complain with your dollar, though. Like, why do you think you have the right to protest, to extend your voice in such a big way?
Because, you want something to be good. That's why you support it. So if it's not good, then what else are you going to do besides complain?
Well, you're not going to buy it, right? You're going to move on to the next thing. But this is different. These are people saying, not only am I not going to buy Mass Effect, I'm going to tell you why it's broken and why there's terrible representations of different people that are important to me.
Those
Or
opinions
the
are
fact they
important to the
include them.
developers, aren't they?
What opinions?
We need to voice those opinions to developers so that they know what they need to fix.
But that's the line I'm talking about here. Like, where is that between, like, is the role of the developer just to shovel us what we want, which I think is what Mass Effect Andromeda was a BioWare team thinking, this is what our fans want. We know they want 4 different gay characters. They want a trans character. Let's do that poorly. And they want exploration. They want big worlds. Click, click, click.
Let's do that poorly, too. Yeah.
There's no real artistic vision of this is the story I'm trying to tell, though. So that's what I think Mass Effect Andromeda is the best example of developers just doing what they think people want.
Mass Effect Andromeda didn't push enough boundaries. It was playing it so safe and trying to appeal to everybody that at no point did they try to push the artistic medium. They were just going to cookie cutter out another Mass Effect game and bank on that and just take that money and leave. You know, they weren't trying to make any crazy new lengths with this game. They just
claimed
went
they
in.
did, though. Like,
did it really?
The marketing campaign said, like, this is going to be, we're going to push it in these big ways and it's going to do great things. So, okay, we'll take that conceit that they weren't trying to tread artistic ground, new artistic ground. Even if they were, the game ultimately didn't. We all agree on that, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Everyone's on that page. Even if you haven't played it, don't worry. Just agree with me.
I don't know.
So that happened. Should we as consumers, should me and Anton Max start a Twitter page said BioWare Mass Effect Andromeda sucks, everyone should listen to me, because we put in 200 hours and were hurt playing this game and really thought it was a spit in the face of the legacy of Mass Effect. What should we do as consumers to make sure this kind of doesn't happen again?
There's got to be like a moderate line, man, especially with community feedback, because we have so many people on Twitter and in the YouTube comments just screeching and yelling so much absurd stuff that
poison, just pure poison.
Exactly, and it's absolutely getting so lost in translation, and it's no wonder we got a game like this, because there's so many voices that are so over the top and so I don't know, angry about everything BioWare does, that they think like, oh,
the only way
the only way to appease our fans is by just giving them all of this stuff
and
constantly.
It's so important now more than ever to be able to make a concise point, right?
Yeah.
With all of this screeching and angry poison flinging,
like consumers, to make a concise
point. To make a calm and concise point about a game and say, these were the shortcomings. This is what was wrong with it. There were clear and obvious faults when this game launched that should not have happened. And to concisely make those points in YouTube or in tweets.
So isn't that the role of the critic, though?
No, but that's what I was going to say. That's the role of Sir Andy Borkowski and his ilk to look. I've made a joke there. To look at, the game as in its artistic merits. But I think a lot of the audience here believe that Mass Effect means something more than just a video game. And I don't know, I think I would agree with that in a lot of ways. It represents maybe the pinnacle of this sort of gaming. And as a result, it becomes a part of your identity almost. So when your identity is being attacked by, ironically, the creators, it's almost as if you're justified in doing whatever you can to insult other people, to criticize the developers.
Isn't it?
I think there is, absolutely.
Yes. However,
I think
what
it's
if it is your
entitlement.
literal identity? What if you are a transgender person and you look at this incredibly ridiculous and disrespectful display of transgender people?
So the Hainley Abrahms character.
Yeah, the Hainley Abrahms character got a lot of flack from both sides of people who don't like transgender people in general and saying
idiots.
General
Fucktards, excuse me.
Hey, we're not on radio anymore.
Yeah, by the way.
That's great.
Get ready.
So these dumbasses who really just hate transgender people and don't want to see them are hating Ainsley Harriet or
Ainsley Harriet.
What's her name?
That is a dope trans name.
Whoa.
Like that is a really good androgynous name.
That's also the name of a British chef.
All right, Liam, I don't care that much about your life. Okay, get back to what's going on.
But then you have people who are a part of the LGBT community, or at least sympathetic to it, who are seeing this ridiculous tokenized image of a trans person and saying this is our identity and it's totally being disrespected.
So what's your point here? So what should they do? These are both sides
do they
that are
have more of a right to actually complain and to actually defend themselves than people who are just oh, my game isn't what I wanted it to be?
I would say no. I would say fundamentally, I know.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
No one saw that coming.
I think that fundamentally the right for the creator and the artist to create and reinforce that artistic vision, even if it is such a inconceived one as Mass Effect Andromeda, that didn't follow through, that just didn't really have a vision. I still think that they need to be able to do that and fail more than we have any sort of right to ask for more and actually get it in this game. I think it's completely reasonable to go to BioWare and just say, like, listen, go to BioWare to to voice your concerns and say, I would like this in the other game, but I don't think they have to listen. Artists can make something bad.
But what if it has these social
Then
implications?
you can say that, but that doesn't mean that your voice matters more than the same fucktard that's saying that poisonous thing. The
These
rights
are real
of the
people whose lives are being really affected.
These are also real people with ill-conceived notions that believe having a Hainley Abrahms trans character in their game is going to ruin their whole identity. It's the same thought process, but a very different moral center. I really strongly hold the position that both of them shouldn't actually get what they want from this game right now in order to maintain the artistic vision. Personally, I think one side is deplorable and should run into the sea with rocks in their pockets, and the other should be protected. And it's very important that it is represented. There is an instance, though, where BioWare did make a choice that upset people, but they stuck to their guns because they thought the game would be better. Liam is going to play in just in a second. Interview that I did with Patrick Weeks years ago. I was going to say weeks ago. The the writer, one of the writers in Mass Effect 3 is a huge BioWare guy, and he wrote the finishing story arc for Tali Zora, one of the, in my opinion, best characters in Mass Effect. And
Best girl in Mass Effect by far.
Okay, all right, Jesse, thank you. I already think you're cool.
You want to make this a gender thing.
I see how it is.
So let's hear the words of Patrick Weeks talking about Tali Zora and why BioWare did not make a produced, lip-synced, actual face for her.
Oh, we went around that so many times.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a point where we were going to show the face in-game, and then we realized we were doing a ton of work. The amount of work, just purely on a technical level, I would have been great showing the face in-game, you know, if she'd gotten the planet or, you know, right before she died or you know, something at a moment of, you know, emotional climax for her character arc. But just the sheer amount of technical work necessary to make a completely new alien face and get the lip sync rigged up would have probably meant cutting a type of enemy creature. And
really?
The lip sync, especially, you know, each game is built on the shoulders of the last.
Again, Patrick Weeks and cameo from Meesing, really. I really do think that speaks to the realities of making video games. It's not always malicious intent. It's not always people deluded and, you know, not want to give what the fans wanted. It is dollars and cents, fundamentally. And that was something that was big for a lot of people. But if you look at the actual people that played Mass Effect, most of them did not romance Tali Zora. Most of them used a soldier profile and were mostly Paragon. Most of them romanced Liara because it was easier. So it's really difficult for development studios to put so much resources around one little thing to make it special. But when they do that, when they do cut things just to make one moment special, like I think they did a lot of that in a lot of my favorite games, most of them made by Obsidian, Fallout New Vegas. You take Boone to go kill Caesar. Emotional dialogue, almost cried. Incredible. When they do stuff like that, it's what changes games from being emulations of life to being a expression of life, in my opinion. No longer are we just playing a story, but you're hearing something that's true. And holy shit, I don't want to keep playing games that have no truth in it. And I think that's what BioWare did here.
Developers really need to start pushing a little bit harder. There's been a lot of pussyfooting for the last couple of years around some more serious topics. Like this game at no point pushed any boundaries at all. There was no
except for
stunning moments in.
Okay, so we haven't again
for the autopilot.
I've been talking a lot. I've been spewing. I've been opining a lot with my big ass face. So I do want to give you guys a moment just to. I guess, have you come to a conclusion here about what you think these roles should be? Because it's so convoluted, it's confusing, but developer, consumer, who's got something?
It's
what
all
do you
right
think
to
is
take opinions. It's all right to kind of dabble in the suggestion box to figure out what's going wrong. But once again, like you said, they're pissing people off because, to a certain extent, they're eliciting some kind of response, and that's what you want from a medium of that.
And I mean, look at what Hideo Kojima's done for years.
No, let's not.
No,
let's not.
That's a whole big old bag.
Don't give me that. But look at like the Phantom Pain. That game alienated so many
Andy Borkowski.
So many people. Like, because you needed to play every single game, including the PSP games, to like get it.
And that's bad.
That was so many people love that.
Okay,
all
sorry.
The fans
what are you trying to say here?
Love that game.
Mr. Wrong Opinions. What are you trying to say here?
Like, I don't know, because that was absolute, like, I don't want to say like bravery, but that was like doing something.
Let's talk about the bravery.
But seriously, like that's something that wasn't done for the fans, and that was something that kind of alienated a lot of people, but that in the end ended up with something really friggin' great.
I would say that the idea that you will come back and ask people why they hated it, you can do that, but I wouldn't want that answer to hurt whatever story you're trying to tell. Because I think it is more important. We've seen it with indie games. We saw it with Hideo Kojima. As much as I didn't like what was created, when people stick to a vision and create something that appeals to that vision, the content speaks for itself. So I really think, just like this song right here, it had one goal in mind: to bring us a smooth, jazzy time.
And boy, is it smooth.
All right, this is VGS.
This is Michael Haggins, more important.
Andy Borkowski. Ending off here for VGS. Thanks, everyone. We got Anton.
Go.
We got Jesse.
Roll the credits. Go.
Credits. To the credits.
Trevor.
Travis's name this time.
Keep watching, baby. We're going to be back with more